Well, as the White House plays damage control, David Stockman says the more it risks damaging our economy, because Ronald Reagan's budget chief says the more these scandals add to the president's problems, the less Washington will ever deal with our problems, like our deficit problems. And that, you say, would be the biggest sin potentially to come of this, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate this is happening. As one wag said, when it comes to abuse of presidential power, Obama is turning out to be the president that Nixon aspired to be.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is really unfortunate.
By the way, on a side note, you mentioned the Nixon thing and all, but that, how does this compare to Watergate or what you know of so far? It's way early in the process, but some are citing the oddity of this is all 40 years almost to the day of the Watergate hearings.
I was a young kid on Capitol Hill when all of this developed. From day to day, you didn't know what was going to shoe was going to fall next, and it spread and it spread, and pretty soon it was like a whole scenario.
Right. Remember, that was supposed to be a left-wing cabal against a Republican president, and then more revelations came.
So who knows? But it's unfortunate because there are huge problems facing the country, and none of them are being addressed. All the cans are being kicked, and the budget is the most important. And I think CBO is just as blameworthy of distracting the attention of Congress than these scandals going on, because they put out a forecast yesterday that is just rosy scenario on steroids. It's a fairy tale.
The deficits are tumbling, the revenues are coming in.
Then the next thing you know, the wags, the Keynesian
we don't have to cut. We don't have to cut.
No, the CBO says problem solved. This is what some blogger in the Washington Post says today. Now, the fact is, if you believe the CBO forecast, I have some land in Florida, swampland. They're suggesting that for 14 years, no recessions, no economic dislocations. We're going to create 7 times more jobs in the next decade than we did in the last decade. Wage and salary growth, which is what drives revenue, will be 2 times what it has been since 2000.
So you just don't buy it. But you know what they leapt on, right, David? I mean, that $642 billion deficit figure, because it's a lot less than it was and well under $1 trillion. And you and I can remember a time when deficits were approaching $100 billion, and like, whoa!
And we were scared to death.
Now we're celebrating $642 billion. When whatever that deficit is added to the debt.
Of course. But also, $50 billion of that is a payment, a tax gimmick from Fannie Mae. Where does Fannie Mae get the $50 billion? They borrow it in the debt markets.
Right. But a lot of it's just becoming tax increases, right? I mean, that part you like, right?
Well, that part of it is there temporarily, because when the fiscal cliff came at the end of the year, there was a huge preemptive realization of capital gains, bonuses were paid, and so forth. Probably 50, 75, 100 billion is one-time revenue that
and we won't see it repeated, and don't get ahead. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. But you're saying with the focus now on these latest scandals brewing, and there are lots of them, we're going to be distracted even as we are getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, you have almost what I would call an imperfect storm. You have the stock market in like a mania, a high on some kind of Fed monetary crack cocaine. That's the stock market. You have Washington distracted with scandals. You have CBO putting out totally rosy scenario, phony forecasts, telling everybody the problem is solving itself. And so, therefore, there is no hope that the political machinery will engage, will drift into the 2014 election. Both parties will be positioning for 2014, and therefore another couple years are burned up. Meanwhile, we're adding to the national debt, and the longer-term trend, regardless of this one-time pickup that we had this year, is in the $1 trillion range as far as the eye can see. And
yet this golden moment we have to address something is squandered in scandal. Now let me get this. There are a lot of people who look at this soaring market, and they've been saying another spin on it. Well, if it stymies the president's spending initiatives, and he can't make government bigger, and he can't add to this health care monstrosity, that's kind of what's going on here, besides the better than expected earnings and besides the Fed and all that. That's the backdrop. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't really buy that, because I think the Fed is fueling this boom. I mean, if you really watch what people say every day on TV, the Fed has my back. The economy, I don't know if it's better or worse, or if it's stumbling along.
And the Fed will never leave.
But the Fed will never leave. It'll buy $85 billion a month as far as the eye can see. What this tells Congress is you can borrow 5-year money for 80 basis points. Okay, free. It's a rounding error as far as they're concerned. And so the Fed is enabling the kind of paralysis.
Well, how long can that game be played? Leaving the scandals aside.
I don't think it's that long, because all the central banks of the world are doing the same thing. And we clearly now have a race to the bottom. Why is the dollar rising a little bit in the last few weeks? Because the Japanese central bank is even worse. Because the ECB is likely to uncork even more ease over the next few months.
All right, so turn that around, David. We go into a full-throttle Watergate-type summer of investigations into the IRS, into the Justice Department targeting reporters, into Benghazi, and who knew what and when, and Talking Point, and all that. You remember the Watergate summer.
I do.
And the huge distraction. What would happen now?
Well, things can sneak up on you. If Washington becomes totally paralyzed, it almost is already, this will finish the case. And the Fed is finally in a position where it's got to give some signal. You can't just keep buying $85 billion a month for now until the end of time. And so I think there is an accident waiting to happen. This market is entirely artificial. It's sort of people doing it one day at a time, thinking they'll be smart enough to get out before the herd start stampeding before the exit. It's not going to happen. This is the most superficial, artificial market that we've had, even going back to 2007, 2008. So I say it's the fourth bubble of this century. Okay, we had .com splattered all over. $5 trillion was destroyed. We had the housing bubble splattered all over. Millions of people were hurt. Then we had the Wall Street bust in 2008. And now they've simply reflated the same bubble. I mean, you've got subprime back in auto loans. You've got people speculating in the housing market again, particularly the hedge funds going out and becoming,
Well, I think it's a long way from what that...
No. No. In some of the markets, prices are up 30% in 1 year.
Off depressed levels.
Well, off depressed levels, but who knows what the right level is. There aren't real organic buyers coming back in. You know why? Because the young people got so much student debt, they can't afford a down payment. And the baby booms, as they retire, are going to be selling the castle, not buying it. Where are the buyers coming from? People of middle age are buried in debt, or their homes are basically barely worth the mortgage.
All right. Well, I want you to stop because you're depressing the hell out of me. David
these
Stockman,
are facts that,
understood. And I hope a lot of you have had your dinner. If it's not, there's always breakfast, I guess. David, thank you very, very much. In the meantime,